Oh man, this is a fun one. This one got us in some hot water on YouTube. Do you remember
this? With who? With the real devil worshippers?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, and that's kind of the primary reason for making this video, talking about Luciferianism versus what someone would consider a devil worshiper, someone who does rites and rituals based on some satanic ideology.
Sure. Or it's like Marilyn Manson's Satanism versus Aleister Crowley's.
Yeah, in this classic episode, we dive into the question of whether or not there are real, the correct phrase would be theistic Satanists, people who believe in a god and a devil and have chosen to propitiate and worship the devil for some reason or another. And this is very different. We go through a lot of stereotypes. This is different from, the LaVey kind of Church of Satan stuff that you may have heard about. We're looking for the real deal, rituals, sacrifices, all those rumors about the people who liked Metallica and Dungeons and Dragons during the Satanic Panic.
Or Magic the Gathering.
Or Magic the Gathering. Or Alice Cooper.
Yeah. And, maybe you've watched Sons of Sam recently on Netflix, where they talk about the Satanic Panic and potential, devil worship that may or may not have been involved with the Son of Sam killings. Well, hey, this is the episode for you. Check it out.
From UFOs to ghosts and government cover-ups, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, Ben,
Matt,
we are talking about somebody, I don't know. Who could it be?
Tell you what, it's someone who never gets mentioned in award speeches.
Satan?
That's right, Matt. That's right. Today, we are following up on our video podcast that came out earlier with an audio podcast on Satan. The question of the day, which we addressed in our video podcast, was, are there real Satan worshipers?
Yes. And we found that, in fact, yes, there are. And basically the answer we got in the YouTube comments was, of course.
Yeah.
I guess people know a lot more about Satan worship than we do. It's cool. Hey, we get it. We've been doing some research all week and finding all kinds of fun things. So we're going to give you kind of a background on all of this stuff. We're going to give you some of the allegations against worshipers of Satan. And we're going to look at the reality of Luciferianism, which is a slightly different thing.
Sure.
And yeah, come along for the ride.
Yeah. Hop on, make a Faustian bargain with us for the rest of this podcast. I don't know what that means. I promise this podcast is not like 7 years long. If a soul exists, you will keep yours at the end. First, a little bit of a disclaimer. Matt, you and I know that it is incredibly difficult to talk about these sorts of subjects, right?
Absolutely. And we want to make sure that we're separating the facts from our opinions, and we will be extremely careful to let you know what is our opinion, and what are the facts. So, yeah, Satan.
Right. Yes, Satan. And we hope you enjoy this episode. And if you do love it, please let us know. If you do have a problem or there's something you think we got completely wrong, please remember that because these things are so subjective, it's very easy for anyone, including Matt, myself, and possibly you, listener, to mistake an opinion for a fact.
Even Noel.
Even super producer Noel, who needs a shout out here. Noel, we had some people write in, by the way, about the Halloween special.
You kind of did a great job.
Yeah. We got some tweets asking where the music is. We got some great emails about it. Anyhow, Satan. Noel, I think did it on his own with his own blood, sweat, and tears and no dark deals with Mephistopheles. In the conventional Christian sense, right? Satan is who, Matt?
He is a rebellious angel. Some say he was the most loved by God, but he did God wrong. And he had to go to a place down below.
Right. In some of the Aramaic religions or in stories, right, ancient stories about Lucifer or the devil, as the entity is known today, the devil really loses huge points with God when God creates humans who are God's new favorite thing ever. And he tells all the angels, God tells all the angels to bow down before humans. And Lucifer is...
No, man, I was here first. Come on. You can't do that to me.
Yeah. He was like, this is bunk and this is dumb.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting idea. It goes back to when you look at children and families where there are multiple children and the psychology behind being the firstborn, secondborn, like a middle child or a third child. And the Bible got a lot of the stuff kind of right about the internal, let's say, demons that you have to fight.
Interesting comparison, Matt. I have not thought about it that way, but we do know that some of these stories are repeated throughout the three Abrahamic religions, right? And we know that because of this rebellion, right? However it happens, of course, the details differ, right? As far as the timeline of when Satan falls, but we know that because of this rebellion, he becomes the antagonist of this universe or this belief system. And this interpretation of Satan has changed over time. So modern Christianity today associates Satan with the serpent in Adam and Eve, who's going, hey, come on, man, just eat the fruit.
Yeah.
Why are you being
be afraid.
weird?
Yeah, come on.
You're being so weird, Eve. But Satan himself, as we mentioned in the video, the actual individual is more of a New Testament thing. Yeah.
Then in the New Testament, you see Satan come along when he's tempting Jesus, when Jesus is out on his wilderness journey. And he's kind of seen as a tempter there, where he's trying to get Jesus to move away from his faith by offering him things.
Sure, yeah. They have that Lion King moment where they stand on the cliff and he says, all of this can be yours if you just do what I say, essentially. If you just choose me over God. So this concept of an adversarial spirit is far from unique. Many religions have adversarial entities, right? And it's possible that the modern understanding of Satan in the Christian and perhaps the Islamic religion as well, derive in part from religious syncretism, the melding of different religions when they meet. So we've got the Abrahamic concepts dating back to Satan, the just obstructor, the challenger, and pre-existing religions, particularly Babylonian, which was fascinating to me, Matt.
Yeah, we took a look at Zoroastrianism, which is cool. Did some Wikipediaing even just to make sure I matched up all the imagery and everything.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. One interesting thing that we found in our research is that one group's God can be another group's Satan and vice versa. And we found this in a couple of different places. What's the name of that group?
Gnosticism, the Gnostics.
The Gnostics. This is a name for a group of beliefs. The practitioners believe that the material world, the one that we're existing on, that you're listening to this podcast in, was created and is ruled by a demiurge or creator who is not God, the ruler of the spirit world.
So God, the actual God, rules the spirit world.
Yes.
And this demiurge rules the material plane.
That's correct.
All right. And we know that this demiurge is not the best entity, not the best thing. In fact, it's often an antagonist attempting to impede the human soul or spirit from reaching the higher plane. You'll hear it called names like Yaldabaoth. There's some great moments in Gnostic literature about this Yaldabaoth, this chief archon. In this system, what we think of as the main god is instead this demiurge, and there's a higher plane with a benevolent creator that exists in the spiritual world. So, if you can cast your memory back there, Lord, to borrow from a Van Morrison song, to centuries and centuries ago, when people would say, this is the God that we worship. And then these Gnostic folks would say, your God is the bad guy, though. We're doing something else. So you guys are sort of devil worshippers. But of course, it wasn't phrased in that way. And, these beliefs, Gnostic beliefs, were considered heretical and, very close to, Satanism, but it's a different interpretation. You know what I mean? We do know that there are different types of straight up Satanism, though.
So the one that you probably know about the most was started by this guy named Anton LaVey. It's called, the system is also called atheistic Satanism. It's a religious philosophy that bases a lot of its system of belief on egoism, individualism, and self-deification. So you are the most important thing as the practitioner inside this belief system.
Okay, but it still, I think, counts in a religious way because they practice magic, right?
Oh yeah, they practice magic, but they do not worship Satan or the devil.
Oh, okay, so they worship the symbol that
exactly.
This Luciferian, almost Promethean light bringer. That's what they're worshiping.
And we found that that's pretty common, at least from when I was searching around. That's a fairly common thing in people who say they worship Satan or the devil. They use a system of belief, not necessarily actually worshiping a deity or anti-deity.
So then, in this case, we know that this would not be the real Satan worshippers that we're talking about in our videos or in the title question of this podcast.
Not necessarily.
Not
they
necessarily.
fit in because of, they call themselves Satanists. And,
yeah.
But yeah. I would say no.
Well, we know that you can read more about this type of Satanism in Anton LaVey's book, The Satanic Bible, and we have a list of some of their rules. Again, these were made by Anton LaVey. These did not come down from some sort of golden tablet equivalent or whatever. He's pretty transparent about that.
Yeah, and it's what. So this is the opinion time, but I feel like it should definitely be called LaVeyism rather than Satanism, just because it was kind of written by one guy.
I see what you're saying, and I wonder if, I wonder what the choice was to say that. I guess it's because the symbol informs so much of the belief system. Mm-hmm. But, that's the thing. If you make something up, you get to name it.
It's true, and no offense to the guy, but saying something is Satanism, I'm sure, didn't hurt in getting some press.
From what I understand, and, not to make this an Anton LaVey podcast, that, he had been practicing things like this for some time before he, gathered this material and made a religion. And although there have been some schisms in the Church of Satan between, the church's runners, right, and, LaVey's daughter, the organization itself continues today. So,
I'm not dogging it.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not dogging it.
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't know, maybe stating an obvious thing.
Yeah, LaVeyism. But maybe, I don't know, people's question would be, who is Anton LaVey at that time? Right? Well, here's the thing. Despite the name, they advocate some things that are actually not that bad philosophically. I don't completely agree with everything, but that's my opinion. Here's some of the factual things. Matt, maybe you and I can alternate on this.
Sure.
So he has a thing called the 9 Satanic Statements, and they are?
Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence.
Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams.
Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit.
Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. Sick burn.
Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek.
And represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires, which we also have a video series on.
Check it out. Satan represents man as just another animal, sometimes better, more often worse than those that walk on all fours, who because of his divine spiritual and intellectual development has become the most vicious animal of all.
Now, here's one of the really controversial ones, Matt. Satan represents all of the so-called sins as they all lead to physical, mental, or emotional gratification.
Murder?
I don't know.
Murder, I guess.
I'm not sure. It's kind of a blanket statement, but there's one more.
Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had, as he has kept it in business all these years.
So we see here, there's a blunt, candor to, these statements. Now, these are not necessarily the commandments. These are sort of mission statements of what this sort of Satanism is. However, we do have, what LaVey calls the satanic rules of the earth, and not to be outdone, he made 11 instead of 10.
That's right. And here they are. 1. Do not give opinions or advice unless you are asked.
2. Do not tell your troubles to others unless you are sure they want to hear them. That's good advice, actually.
That's pretty good. When in another's lair, show them respect or else do not go there. Agreed.
4. If a guest in your lair annoys you, treat them cruelly and without mercy.
Whoa.
It's your house, I guess.
Do not make sexual advances unless you are given the mating signal, which is...
Yeah, now without knowing what the mating signal is, I respect the idea, but I would definitely want to know what it is because I don't want to accidentally be in that kind of environment and make a mating signal, you know?
We need to come up with a universal human mating signal.
Yeah, there's some like body language things, but I don't know if there's a one-size-fits-all answer. Anyhow, that's something for another day. Okay, I'm glad that you thought that was a strange one too. 6, this is pretty good. Do not take that which does not belong to you. Pretty good so far. But wait, there's a comma, unless it is a burden to the other person and they cry out to be relieved. That could be, there are different ways.
Ben, take this Ferrari from me, please.
I'm taking it for you, not from you.
I really appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow. Acknowledge the power of magic if you have employed it successfully to obtain your desires. If you deny the power of magic after having called upon it with success, you will lose all you have obtained.
8. Do not complain about anything to which you need not subject yourself.
Hold on, I just want to go back to the previous one really fast, Ben, because
they totally said magic works.
Yeah, like magic is real, and believe it. If you don't, you're going to lose all the things you conjured.
You know, one thing that's interesting about this is a friend of mine who is a professor. He studies esoteric matters like the concept of magic in the digital age, the nature of consciousness in a world where artificial intelligence may soon exist. And he said something really interesting to me one time. He said, if you don't like the term magic, if you're just reacting to that term the same way people would react to something like conspiracy theorists or, some kind of political appellation, then don't consider it magic. Call it weaponized psychology. And I thought that was really insightful, you know?
I dig it, Ben.
I dig it too. I don't know if that's the same thing that these people are talking about. Perhaps. Absolutely. Because, in full disclosure, Matt, neither of us are Satanists, right?
Right.
No?
Sorry.
Satanist?
Am I? Do I know any?
Are you a Satanist?
I'm a fair weather Satanist.
He's a fair weather Satanist. Okay.
Whoa.
So I guess when it works out.
Okay.
So you're a Satanist the way that people are fans of the Falcons here in Georgia.
Oh man, they won! Yay!
All right, but we're not done.
I have to also say, Ben, the one about that you just said, do not complain about anything. You don't have to.
Yeah.
you don't have to subject yourself to. Amazing.
Yeah, a lot of people get the martyr complex and say, I wish that, my life is so tough. I wish I didn't have to do this thing. And then this satanic rule just points out, well, if you don't have to and you really don't want to, then why are you doing it? Smart.
Next, do not harm young children. I think we can all agree with that.
Everybody can get behind that one, right?
Yeah.
10, do not kill non-human animals unless you are attacked or for your food. So don't kill animals for funsies.
Again, okay.
That makes sense.
What about for sacrifices?
I think that is,
I mean, it's, you're not being attacked. It's not for food.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless you're going to eat it later.
Well, maybe that's LaVey-ish Satanism instead, because we know that there are other kinds of Satanists.
Mm-hmm.
I've said too much. All right, what's the very last one?
When walking in open territory, bother no one. If someone bothers you, ask him to stop. If he does not stop, destroy him.
That's so metal.
Yeah, dude.
That's so, and of course, I want to point out again that these things we're talking about, while I don't agree with everything that is just one person's opinion, and the rules that are outlined here, those 11, make some really good points.
Honestly, they do.
Don't hurt kids.
Yeah.
Don't hurt animals.
It makes so much more sense than it would if somebody just had heard that there were 11 satanic rules of the earth and you didn't know anything about them. You would assume so much worse.
Way different. Yeah. And this, if anything, these are sort of rules of conduct that I think if I saw somebody behaving this way, I would consider them an upstanding person.
Yeah, it's an alternative moral code to the one that a lot of us maybe knew growing up.
Yeah. Can I read you may I read you the satanic sins though? Cause he has a list of sins. All right. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. And these are, Anton LaVey, said these in 1987, and he said these are the things you should avoid. There are only 9.
Okay.
Stupidity, pretentiousness, solipsism, self-deceit, herd conformity, lack of perspective, forgetfulness of past orthodoxies, counterproductive pride, lack of aesthetics. So, like having bad style or not appreciating beauty is a sin. That's very interesting. But as we're about to find out, that is only one kind of Satanist. And that is the kind of Satanist that a lot of people in the West are familiar with, right?
Yes, we're going to get into that right when we return, because it's time for a word from our sponsor.
And we are back. Let's cut past all of the philosophical Satanism that we talked about, which of course is, I think as you said very well, Matt, it's an alternative belief system or value system that doesn't necessarily make it a terrible thing. And it's certainly not a reason to persecute someone, especially in a country that has freedom of religion like the U.S.
Yeah, to me, that type of Satanism seems like a very constructed form of individualism.
Yeah. There's something kind of Ayn Randy-ish about it. There's a little bit of objectivism there, but that's not what we're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for hanging out through the word from our sponsor, because now we have, I don't know about you, Matt, again, this is just my opinion, this is the most fascinating part of this.
Oh yeah, sure. Definitely. It's gonna get dark.
Yeah, I can hear it getting darker already.
I can hear it too.
Yeah, our synesthesia is kicking in, man. What we are talking about now, ladies and gentlemen, is not the LaVey-ish Satanist or the atheistic Satanist, but the theistic Satanist. These are the people who believe that there is a bad guy in the universe. There is an unholy entity working against the creator of reality or illuminating it. And they said, you know what? Let's pray to that guy.
Yeah, I like that guy.
So they also engage in ceremonial magic. However, there are some things, as you and I were looking into Satan worship, right? Theistic Satan worship. We learned that there are some things that a lot of people haven't considered, especially when there are moral panics about widespread Satan worship.
Oh yeah. So what we have learned, Ben, is that accusations of Satan worship occur a lot more than the actual worshiping of Satan. A lot like the witches back in the day. There are a lot more people accused of being a witch than were witches. And same with McCarthyism and communists. It just, when there's something that scares you, you may be more inclined to accuse somebody of this thing that you're afraid of.
Ah, I see. And we know that while people who were accused of witchcraft back during the Inquisition and other witch hunts, while they were possibly not Christian, they probably weren't worshiping, Lucifer.
Sure.
There's fairly compelling evidence that some people accused of witchcraft were practicing a pagan religion of some sort, right? Or something that might be a heretical belief system. Accusations of witchcraft, however, often had political or social motives behind them, especially during periods of time when an accuser or an inquisitor would potentially be entitled to part of the witch's estate upon conviction.
Exactly, or if they had anything to gain whatsoever from this person not being there. We can see similar patterns in all kinds of social panics. We talked about a couple of those. Even if you look at music, like rock music, all the way to the accusations of hip-hop performers like Jay-Z being secretly in league with the Illuminati, which, by the way, we covered. Check out our video. And, through the Illuminati, a lot of the times it gets lumped in with the devil. There's a belief that the Illuminati overall worships the devil, or at least an evil entity.
Right. There's a story here that I thought was interesting. One time, Judas Priest was accused of being responsible for a crime that happened. The mother of this child said that listening to Judas Priest had compelled her son to criminal acts. And they talked about what's called backward masking.
Yes.
And what is that? Like, you have a better understanding of this.
It's pretty simple. Back in the day when you had the records, a lot of the times you would play the record backwards. And when you listen to the music backwards, the speech patterns of the vocals sound strange. And sometimes it sounds like words are being spoken and hidden when you play it backwards.
So Judas Priest's defense against this accusation, which won the day in court actually, was that if they had done backward masking, they would have done something like buy 7 more albums.
Yeah.
Which I think is a fairly flippant
pretty compelling
answer, but also pretty accurate. So we know that this stuff continues. The vast majority of people who self-identify as theistic Satanists, and you can find these organizations or these individuals easily online, they come from comparatively recent organizations in history. What we mean by this is they're relatively new ideologies or denominations. And of course, you will find a wealth of people insisting that they're from what is sort of the golden goose of our question, a multi-generational, theistic, Satan-worshipping community, similar to the way that the family in True Detective, right, is not quite satanic, but definitely a neo-pagan, very messed up evil thing.
And what we found out from our video, that, the thing that at least the creator of that series talked about, there was that one case where there actually was a group of Satan worshipers who at least they believed they worshiped Satan.
Right. And that is a pretty disturbing story. I thought you did a great job editing that. I know that's one of those, sometimes you guys, when Matt and I go into something pretty deep and dark, we feel like you just can't wash it off,
Yeah, I go into a hole sometimes and just shiver alone in the dark.
But we do know that if there are real multi-generational lines of theistic Satan worshipers, then there are some problems with verifying their existence. How do we say it, right?
Yeah, well, sure. This sort of worship was, you could get yourself killed, executed by the state or the church for a long time there. It would be very difficult to openly worship the devil or Satan pretty much at any time. Even right now, it would be difficult, I think. With as progressive as we are right now, if you're super open about it, I think your life is not going to be easy, at least.
Well, especially if you're a person who is worshiping the idea of Satan as presented in the Bible, right, or in biblical canon, because then you would be actively doing things that are against the law.
Yeah.
Your alignment would be, I believe, chaotic evil.
Done.
If we're doing
great reference.
Role-playing joke, yeah. Well, there's another thing here too, Matt. Numerous organizations purporting to have some sort of ancient lineage have been proven to be hoaxes, or at least, if we're going to give them a benefit of a doubt, they have been lying, at least in part, about their origin. I want to say something else too. Earlier I said neo-pagan. I don't believe that there's anything wrong or inherently evil about neo-paganism.
Oh, sure.
It's one of those, I haven't seen in recent memory, a group of neo-pagans band together and kill everyone who's not neo-pagan.
Yeah, sure. I'm never heard of neo-pagans doing anything wrong, actually, that I can recall.
Well, history is long and there's a lot of stuff for us to dig through. I'm sure we could find.
The last thing I want to mention here are Freemasons. Now, you'll go online and you will see all kinds of videos and websites about how Freemasons worship Lucifer.
Mm-hmm.
I got a book for Christmas a couple years ago called Freemasons 101. Now, I'm not saying it's the Bible of the Freemasons or, it's not the go-to book. You can't go there and find all the answers. But it talked a lot about how there was some confusion about worshiping the devil with Freemasons. I don't have all the information, but I would highly recommend you going out there and doing some research if you hear about this kind of thing, because a lot of it, at least from my experience, is rumor, and probably not true. But I don't know for sure.
I see what you're saying. That's fair. And we know that Freemason lodges have acquired, at times, a shady reputation, but a lot of that would be judging off of one bad apple in many ways.
Well, and it's also just secrecy in itself.
Sure. And there's a great deal of, inherent secrecy in something like that. However, in the age of the internet, it is super, super easy to find that information. Now, is it disrespectful to people who wish that kind of privacy? Yeah, in a lot of ways it is. It's, certainly, for instance, it would be disrespectful to Scientologists, right? Where a lot of the documents that are supposed to be restricted, if you're a Scientologist, right? They are available free online. And, it goes back to your idea of, is this ethical?
Sure.
But, yeah, with Freemasons, a lot of the fascinating stories that you can read here, nowadays are going to tend to be more factual than the rumors that would spread, when people didn't have the ability to Google something.
The internet does tend to shed light on things, well, too many things sometimes.
And all kinds of, noise as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a very interesting point. I don't know if we ever talked about this. This is so tangential, but there's this great idea that secrecy used to be based on restricting information, right, before the digital age, and now it's based on inundating you with information. And I always wonder, when we're really cooking with gas, Matt, I always wonder if we were going to find one of those needles in the haystack, one of those diamonds in the rough, and have somebody show up at our doors.
Oh, geez. Well, I can give you one little needle in the haystack.
What's that?
The Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Ah.
It feels, just to me, this is completely, in my opinion, but it seems like there are a lot of things happening and in the news right now that might be to obfuscate the idea of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I don't know, Ben. I don't know.
Well, let's look into it. Let's find out. And listeners, those of you who perked up when you heard us mention this, write to us and let us know if you want us to cover this in more depth.
All right, you guys, let's get into the allegations of Satanism throughout time. This is just a giant list that Ben and I are going to go through. If you hear something that you're interested in, get on that Google and just find it, man. There's all kinds of stuff for you on that Google, and you can find it.
But be careful, my friends, because a search engine is a lot like an abyss. If you search long enough, it starts searching you. Whatever.
Yeah, sure.
That was better in my head. So one thing that we noticed in our YouTube comments is that quite a few people said, why didn't you cover these various groups that are clearly Satanist? And we have covered these folks. So if we say something that strikes your interest, check out our videos, search youtube.com/conspiracy stuff, or check out our website, stufftheyon'twantyouto.com, and you will probably find 1, 2, or even 3-part series on these guys. So with a devilish drum roll, please. Perfect. Let's start naming groups accused of Satanism.
That was unexpected.
That was really good.
So the first one is the Illuminati.
Nice. Beat me to it.
And the Bohemian Grove, Ben.
Ah, yes. Possibly separate entities, but
ooh, who knows, man? Maybe
knows?
Not. What about the royal family?
Ah, yes. Which one, right?
All of them.
All of them. What about the Bilderbergs?
Ooh, that's a great one.
Trilateral Commission.
The Business Council.
Oh, yeah. And, What about the Rothschilds?
Oh, that's one of those families. How about any of those families? The Warburgs,
Right.
the
Rockefellers, the any name that you think is associated with having a certain amount of money. I'm surprised, really, that Bill Gates and Warren Buffett haven't been accused of Satanism yet.
We just haven't found the accusation.
Mm-hmm.
It's somewhere small on a GeoCities page.
Right. Yeah. Ouch. GeoCities. It's not online anymore, is it? You have to use the Wayback Machine.
It's true, but it's there.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So we did the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, the Council for Foreign Affairs, right?
Oh, man.
Let's see. What else? The Jesuits, of all people, at times have been accused of worshiping Satan. It's very strange to me.
I've even seen the Catholic Church itself, like the Vatican, lumped in there because of some of the symbols that they use. Like the acorn, and what was the other thing? Oh, the obelisks.
Yeah. The obelisk are a huge thing too. And I don't blame people, because if you just look at an obelisk, it's really weird. And why of all things did you build that strangely phallic monument?
That's why.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I just figured, thank you. You just hit me to it.
Actually, it does go back to, the male phallic imagery. That's the whole point of it.
Will never be the same. But let's see, some other groups that have been accused of this, it's sad and it's heartbreaking, but we'd be remiss if we didn't point it out. Over the course of history, the three Abrahamic religions, especially denominations or facets, schools of thought in those three religions, have accused each other more or less continually across history of not only being misled in their choice of belief system, but actively worshiping the devil. So they said this about Christians have said this about Judaism. Christians have said this about Islam, right? And people who follow Islam have said this about other religions. It's a mess.
I think it's interesting. It goes back to the idea that Satan is this great trickster and will make you believe that something is true that is not, and something is not true that is. So you basically get mixed around, and you think that what's up is down and down is up, and then you end up worshiping Satan when you thought you were worshiping God. I think that's an interesting idea, and why it kind of shapes the views of the other religions at times in history.
Right. Yeah. You'll see this, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because you see that idea playing out in purported explanations of a Freemason power structure too, right? That there's only an inner circle who knows what's actually going on, and the outer circle is just there for, social cachet, right?
Yeah, you're worshiping the great architect, but you didn't know the great architect is Satan?
That voice is killing me, man.
My bad. I don't know what happened.
It's like it's not even coming from you. I'm hearing it in different corners of the room, and
that's weird.
Yeah. Noel's crying a little bit of blood. That's strange. Well, let's soldier on.
Oh, God, get a tissue.
But now, finally, our $1 million question. Okay. Are there, aside from these allegations, which have not been proven, are there genuine cases of people purposefully conducting evil rites to venerate or communicate with an otherworldly, supernatural, unholy monster beyond the stars? You know what I mean? Like, is it real?
That was poetic, Ben.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yes.
Yep. There are the cases we mentioned on the show, with the one that is likely an inspiration for True Detective, and that is definitely something that I would caution you about. If you are easily offended or bothered, there are some very disturbing details. But so we know those cases we mentioned on the show. There's an alleged devil worship ring in Italy known as the Beast of Satan. I found a biased source, Christian World News, that estimates there are 800 satanic cults in Italy alone. And we had to note, those have not been proven.
There have been numerous serial killers that claim to be involved with some kind of dark satanic arts, some kind of rites or rituals.
Yeah.
This includes killers like the Son of Sam, Richard Ramirez, Otis Toole, and a bunch more. And you can look into the 4-Pi movement.
The Hand of Death.
Super interesting. We did an episode on that, and it's still to this day, one of the most, I don't know, I'll sit down and watch it sometimes, even though I know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that there has not been an in-depth feature film on that because it's such a strange and fascinating story. But then there are other people, perhaps you listeners, who say, if you think about it, it's not surprising at all. All right, there's another book that we found, In the Name of Satan. This book concerns an incident where these teenagers, Royce Casey, Jacob DeLashmutt, and Joe Fiorella, were in a band called Hatred, and they believed that they had found a way to make the ultimate offering to the Prince of Darkness. They sacrificed an innocent girl, and dragged her to an area they believed would serve as a devil's altar. They drugged her, they attacked her, they stabbed her.
Jeez.
And we'll find that a lot of the cases of people who are saying that they are a theistic Satanist, they're really throwing this idea on as sort of window dressing to their crimes.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's more, I think, cases of disturbed individuals.
Yeah, well, to me, it's almost not an excuse to go through with some of those dark thoughts, but it's maybe for the person, it's a nice way to try and justify it.
Yeah,
Not nice at all. It's not nice at all. It's just a way for them to justify it.
I imagine that's correct, which makes it even more disturbing. And here's another example, if we're talking about rationalization. In 2002, a young married British couple admitted to a ritual satanic killing, and they were told they could spend the rest of their lives in a secure psychiatric unit. There's this belief then that there was a bizarre underground occult group in Britain. A lady named Manuela Ruda, she was 23 at the time, told a German court she had become a vampire in London. And her husband, Daniel Ruda, I assume, 26, was given a prison sentence. So they had 13 years for her, 15 years for him. They had hacked one of their friends to death in a flat in Germany, and if you read the details of the story, one of the reasons they picked him is because he had sort of a milder demeanor and like the Beatles.
Really?
Yeah, which doesn't sound, it sounds to me more like a rationalization for wanting to kill someone than it does, feeling compelled by dark forces to do so.
Gives you an icky feeling thinking about this stuff.
That's not the last example.
Yeah, in 2008, a gang of Satan worshippers murdered 4 teenagers by stabbing each of them 666 times.
Yeah, the number of the wounds is the same as that revered by followers of the devil, which, not to be pedantic, the number is not actually 666. That's a mistranslation, right?
Yes, Ben, it's possible that number is actually 616.
So they're not doing the research. But these people, this gang, would kidnap kids who were 16, 17, which I still think qualifies as a kid, and then attack them. And this was in Russia, about 300 miles northeast of Moscow. They also ate parts of their victims.
Jeez.
Which brings us to one other case. And we're hammering it home, but we're barely scratching the surface of murders that are alleged to be part of satanic rites. This past month, Matt, for anyone listening to this podcast when it comes out, October 2014, just as people were preparing for Halloween, 3 people were arrested for killing and cannibalizing at least 2 men in Clemens, North Carolina. The male who is, sort of the ringleader is named Pazuzu Ila Algarad, 35 years old, and his accomplices listed as Amber Nicole Birch, 24, Crystal Nicole Matlock, 28. And
those are just the people arrested so far, right?
Yeah, I think those are going to be the main 3. This Pazuzu guy, a real character. For everybody wondering, hey, does that name sound familiar? Yeah, it's the demon from The Exorcist. Turns out Pazuzu's mother is a Satanist and named her son that.
Oh, that was just going to turn out great, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know the entirety of the story. I know that they're still looking for more bodies. They found the men buried in the backyard, and they found animals as well. So these are certainly not LaVey type Satanists or atheistic Satanists. So, Matt, gotta ask you, my favorite part of the show, what's the verdict?
The verdict is, don't name your children names of demons from popular films.
Mm-hmm.
You're just setting yourself up for failure, or maybe win, depending on what you believe. But I would say don't do that. I think, Ben, that this is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
People, in my experience, can make themselves believe a lot of things. And I personally don't think that a Satan that can be worshipped exists, my personal opinion. Okay. However, I definitely think that some people could convince themselves that it's true and do things, like we said before, to, to strengthen those beliefs.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, this is so interesting to me because it's one of the longest running, most pervasive conspiracy theories in the world of this sort of thought. And that's the idea that the earth is run, or at least part of the earth is run by a faction of people who have a secret religion. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. As crazy as it might sound, it is possible to have a secret religion. And really, when we see most of that, it's religion where outsiders are not allowed to see certain stuff. Mm-hmm. But you'll know that there is a religion that you're not part of. For something to be so secret that people don't even know about it, that's kind of tough. And for a long time, I was very, very skeptical about this. But recent events in the United Kingdom have convinced me that it is possible for people at the top of a social hierarchy to keep secrets that otherwise should never have been kept. And I'm talking specifically about the child abuse allegations, largely seeming factual, regarding Cyril Smith, what's his name, Jimmy Savile.
Yeah.
And these guys kept secrets for decades. And they had assistance from the government. And if we just took out child abuse and put in Satanism, then the mechanism of keeping something like that secret still holds, which is terrifying.
Yeah, it would be the same.
Right. So
just as an anecdote here, I used to work at a country club, a prominent country club in Atlanta, and I knew a lot of the members' names because I worked there, and one of the things was you had to address people by their names when they show up. One of the only things you'll find, if you go online and search for this group or the members of this club, is an old web page that you have to have a member ID to log in and search it at all. And I was trying to look up some of these old members because I actually somewhat became friends with some of them, and you can't find their names anywhere. Some of these really prominent people. And it just makes me think, I don't know, man, if it's that easy to hide yourself on the internet.
Yeah.
Just for that simple thing, like your information about being a member of a country club.
Privacy is one of the new elite privileges. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's increasingly difficult for people to attain online privacy. So I can see how it's definitely at a premium. And I guess what you and I are both saying then is that through different means, we have found that it is possible for someone to keep a secret, whether that secret be a crime or whether that secret be some sort of belief system. And to me, that's strange, especially because, Matt, you and I work ardently to make sure that we respect other people's belief systems, right? Even in some cases, belief systems that specifically say people like you and I are very, very bad.
Yeah.
But enough about us. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast. We would like to hear what you think. Are there real devil worshippers? Are they multi-generational Are they spanning the globe, working in secret to bring down humanity or usher in a new dark age?
And
Yeah.
And if there is a group like that, what exactly do you think they worship? What the heck is it, man?
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to hear your ideas.
And that's the end of this classic episode. If you have any thoughts or questions about this episode, you can get into contact with us in a number of different ways. One of the best is to give us a call. Our number is 1-833-STDWYTK. If you don't want to do that, you can send us a good old-fashioned email. We are
conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.